Stu, help me make sense of this story. Republican Governor Mike DeWine said he has not seen Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg at all. At all. Now, I'm sure he has seen him on TV, not talking about Ohio. I'm sure he's seen him, you know, at some point in his life, maybe. But since the train derailment, nothing.
I mean, he probably saw him on TV talking about how there weren't enough black people in construction jobs.
Yeah, of course he saw that.
Yeah. That's an important thing to talk about.
Liar, Mike. What a liar. Anyway, and then yesterday, the Biden, I'm going to read this verbatim. The Biden administration has turned down Republican Ohio Governor Mike DeWine's request for federal disaster assistance for the train derailment. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, otherwise known as FEMA. Have you ever heard of them?
I have heard of them.
Yeah, okay. They said that...
Too many white people working there, too.
They said that Ohio is not eligible to receive assistance because the incident didn't classify as a national disaster. The rejection came nearly 2 weeks after the Norfolk Southern train, which carried harmful chemicals, derailed. 2,000 residents were evacuated, blah, blah, blah. FEMA classifies a national disaster declaration as when there is property damage caused by a tornado, flood, hurricane, or earthquake. The state currently does not have any associated costs that could demonstrate to FEMA to be able to get a disaster declaration because the train cars didn't cause any power outages, block any roads, or impede residents' property. That's a quote from FEMA.
It didn't impede residents' property? I mean, they had to evacuate. They're just saying that everything's fine.
You can go back there if you want.
Right, that's their claim.
Back. I mean,
just check it out.
Just check it out. We're not saying, you know, we're just saying, do you get your vax? If you got your vax,
did the vaccine work for this too?
Well, I don't know about that, but I just don't want them going back if they haven't had their vaccine. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
they could spread COVID to
But if
each
you
other.
have your vaccine, go back in. You're fine. You're good. The federal government has nothing to do with your puny little life there. What? Train, you know, big toxic clouds. Okay, so why?
Is it just, are they trying to say it's just not FEMA's purview? Like, I mean, if we had a chemical fire somewhere...
Tell me the time that FEMA has not chomped at the bit to come into your community to take over.
Right. I mean, that's the way.
I can't think of one.
But are like their line there seems to be it's not a natural disaster, and we only deal with natural disasters. Is there another government agency, another alphabet collection of letters that's supposed to come in and deal with chemical accidents?
No.
The EPA?
Well, the EPA is there, but this is...
Are they helping
what they're trying?
People?
Oh, yes, they are.
Oh, they are, okay.
They're saying, come on back in.
Okay.
Everything's fine. Come into the water. Just, you know, take a net, scoop all those dead fish off of the surface of the water.
Right.
They died from something else, I'm sure.
Some of them seem to sprout wings and fly out of the river onto your property, but just scoop them up.
Right.
They're dead now.
Right. And if you don't scoop them up, they're going to grow feet.
Right.
And so...
You don't want the fish feet.
No.
Fish feet around your property is going to lower property values. Your Zillow thing is going to go through the floor.
Now, let me give you this story from the New York Times. By the way, I'm leading someplace, and it's a happy place.
Is it fish feet? Is that does this all come back to fish feet?
So here's the headline from the New York Times. Now listen to this story: Chernobyl 2.0, Ohio train derailment spurs wild speculation. So this story is about the conspiracy theories that are coming from
conservatives.
Yeah, conservatives. Yes.
Wait a minute. We finally found an ecological issue that the New York Times is downplaying?
Yes.
There finally is one.
Oh, yeah.
Every time there's an oil spill of like 3 drops, they send 12 reporters to the scene to look for any bird that has oil on their feathers.
There is a snowstorm, and it's because of your hairspray.
Right.
Okay? All right. Since a train carrying hazardous materials derailed in Ohio nearly 2 weeks ago, writes the New York Times, residents have feared for their safety. A controlled burn of toxic materials has filled the air and covered surface waters with soil with chemicals. Dead fish have floated in nearby creeks, and an unnerving aroma has lingered in the air. Oh, okay.
This is a lot of evidence.
But for many commentators from across the political spectrum, the speculation has gone far beyond known facts. Right-wing commentators have been particularly critical, using the crisis to sow distrust about government agencies and suggest that damage could be irreparable. You mean like we have to act on global warming and completely destroy all of any kind of modern living and eat bugs within the next 10 years, or the earth will be destroyed forever? You mean that kind of irreparable? On social media like Twitter and Telegram, commentators have called the situation the largest environmental disaster in history, or simply Chernobyl 2.0, invoking the 1986 nuclear disaster. By the way, let's go back and see how the press reacted to the 3 Mile Island accident. Remember? That was the greatest nuclear meltdown of all. Nope, nothing was measured in the air. Nothing.
Yeah, the worst side effects of that incident were the equivalent of a full set of chest x-rays.
Correct. And that they stopped nuclear energy because of that.
And arguably caused, if you want to believe their narrative, or at least their outcomes, they're not going to give this narrative, but arguably caused the problems that we have with global warming today.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
They shut down the nuclear industry, so we had to go to other
stay on fossil
fuels. And if in their world, this is what's caused all the problems.
Correct.
Which, by the way, that means they caused all the problems.
Well, isn't that the way progressives work?
Yeah.
They cause the problems and then try to fix the problems that they caused, which causes more problems, which they then try to fix. It's a never-ending series, chain of events. They warned, they said, without any evidence that vital water reservoirs serving states downriver could be badly contaminated. Keyword there, could. And they suggested that the authorities, railroad companies, and mainstream news media were purposely obscuring the full toll of the crisis. Right, because when have you ever done that, mainstream media, government, or railroad companies?
You've already had several bits of information that have come out that different chemicals were on board that we didn't know about initially. There were more effects than we thought. Of course, people are going to speculate that there's even more than what they've told us.
Stu, please read the New York Times. It says
but I have
right here.
Glenn, I read the New York Times all the time.
No.
And the New York Times, every single time there's any sort of chemical that leaks anywhere on the planet, they say it's going to be a catastrophe. This is the entire paper is basically based on someone dripped some chemical 3,000 miles away.
But
and it's
those
going to affect
were
us.
disasters. This is not. Listen.
This is fine.
Since then, the EPA has said air quality has returned to safe levels. Residents have been allowed to return. Yeah, a chemical odor lingers because people can smell the contaminants even when they are far below hazardous concentrations. This is all according to the EPA. That's what it says right here. Water testing found no indication of risk to public water systems so far, the EPA said. Though private wells should be tested, but the public water, fine. The private water, we're not sure. Utilities drawing from the Ohio River were taking precautions, at least one company said. At town hall meetings on Wednesday, frustrated residents pressed officials for assurances that the air and water were safe. Experts urged caution as they assess the long-term consequences, warning that airborne contaminants can settle on surfaces, seep into wells, and migrate through cracks in basements to homes. Yet influencers and right-wing commentators were quick to draw the conclusion of their own, theorizing about the extent of damage and the federal response, which they say have amounted to an extensive cover-up.
This makes no sense. Well, how could the New York Times be taking this side of the story? I mean, there's a good argument to be made. Like, this happens a lot, right? You have an accident like this, and it is a pretty natural series of events that people who live close by are incredibly worried about it because they can smell stuff in the air, and they're worried about what's going on with their water. They're worried if their children are going to die or develop cancer next week. All really rational fears. And then maybe some scientific experts come in and say, we don't think it's a risk. When that series of events occurs, the New York Times always sides with the families, always sides against the companies, always says, actually, we found some person, this one random person who has this effect. It's not proven to be connected, but we're going to say it's connected anyway. They always side with the freaking out side of this argument. And for this one time, this one incident, they're now all of a sudden all on board with nothing's gone on?
Okay, well, if
Isn't this weird? I mean, seriously, isn't this weird?
No, you have no you have no example of that. Let me give you an unrelated story. Headline: Russian pipeline leaks spark climate fears as huge volumes of methane spew into the atmosphere.
Every time.
What is methane? That's natural gas. Natural gas. Keyword natural. Okay? It seeps out into the atmosphere all the time because it's coming from the earth, and it's natural gas, not man-made chemicals that are not meant to burn, that they just set on fire. No. This is natural gas. They call it methane, which is also what comes out of the butt and the mouth of a cow that they say God created all of this. This is a master plan. This is an incredible thing. But what he didn't know is that he actually created animals that live on the planet that spew a toxic chemical that will make their entire planet die. That's what it says. Yeah. Well, if you don't believe in God, you believe in, natural evolution. Well, if the cow and the farts from animals is toxic to the planet, well, evolution will figure that out. No. Methane, natural, not chemicals in the sky. Again, made for World War I. Setting those on fire? No, it's not a problem. Climate scientists acknowledge that it's hard to accurately quantify the exact size of the emissions and say leaks are, quote, a wee bubble in the ocean compared to the massive amounts of methane emitted around the world every day. Nonetheless, environmental campaigners argue the incident reaffirms the risk of sabotage or accident makes fossil fuel infrastructure a ticking time bomb. Wow. But you in Ohio? Now, I'm going to tie this together. I'll tell you what I think what's really going on here in 60 seconds. Okay, so let me tell you exactly what I think is going on. These people do not care about the things they say they care about. That's all a sham. It's all a sham. This whole global warming thing. Look, first it was global ice age coming when I was growing up. It was an ice age. Then it was global warming. Now it's global climate change because it's going different ways. Okay? Now you can't predict it, but they were absolutely sure you could predict it just a few years ago that it was going to be warming. Now we can't predict it, but we can predict that it's going to be unpredictable. Oh, okay. It's a sham. Now, I believe climate is always changing. We may be in a new period, But all the rest of it is bullcrap for control. Otherwise, they would care about this just as much as they care about everything else. But see, this one has politics involved. This is a red state. This is a state where they don't care about. They'll rush FEMA any place. Well, not to the border here where we're being overrun. Not to Ohio where the skies are on fire. No. These people honestly don't care about any human condition except for their condition of power.
The Glenn Beck Program.
If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe to our channel so you'll be sure to see similar videos from Blaze TV with the added bonus of signaling YouTube that your voice and opinion still matters. And if you're looking for more great conservative content, check out one of the 2 videos suggested here.